Did you know the man who became an idol to millions of people worldwide was actually a fraud? In today's video, we're going to tell you everything about the second life of Clint Eastwood and how he hid all the disgusting parts of himself. So, get ready and watch this video till the end. Clint Eastwood entered Hollywood as a man who seemed almost impossible to read. And for decades, that mystery became his greatest disguise. Audiences saw discipline, restraint, and an authority that rarely cracked. Even when the industry demanded drama, yet beneath that performance lived a life shaped by secrecy, emotional distance, and a habit of dividing his world into compartments that never touched each other. People believed they knew him because he stayed consistent on screen. But consistency became the perfect shield. He did not deny, he did not confess, and he did not explain. He moved forward while silence carried the weight for him. His early career created the template. During the years of Rawhide, he built the calm persona that followed him into every decade that came after. Co-stars remembered him as polite, guarded, and impossible to push into real conversation. Even then, rumors surfaced about affairs, controlling behavior, and sudden romantic shifts. But those stories faded because the public preferred the cowboy who did not break character. Hollywood executives recognized the power of this narrative and invested in it. Eastwood delivered box office results, and no studio wanted curiosity interfering with the image that kept their profits steady. As he rose into the era of Italian westerns, the distance between his public persona and private conduct widened. He worked with Sergio Leone, mastered the art of minimal dialogue, and became the face of a new type of masculinity defined by silence. That silence also protected the personal life he kept scattered across multiple relationships. During these years, he fathered children who were not publicly acknowledged at the time, a fact confirmed later through records and interviews. He sustained relationships that overlapped without explanation. Those who worked near him described a man capable of warmth one moment and absolute withdrawal the next. This up-and-down behavior remained hidden because he never let journalists close enough to capture it. His marriage to Maggie Johnson followed the same pattern: long stretches away from home. Long separations and private affairs became routine. When the marriage endured, it endured only on paper, while his real life split in directions that remained unseen for decades. Public records later revealed that he had fathered children during that period whom he did not acknowledge until adulthood. The world saw stability, but that stability existed only as a photograph, not as a reality. As his directing career expanded, he gained influence that shielded him from scrutiny. Actors described him as focused, efficient, and unwilling to tolerate unnecessary discussion. This discipline earned him awards and respect, but it also created an environment where no one questioned him. People accepted his authority without pushing for transparency, and this allowed his private world to grow more complicated. Relationships formed, dissolved, and overlapped. Partners discovered truths only after years of commitment. Some learned through tabloids rather than through him. These accounts did not emerge from speculation, but from interviews, legal documents, and personal statements that surfaced long after the initial events. Online communities began to examine these patterns. Commentators pointed to the number of unacknowledged children, the overlapping relationships, and the consistent accounts of emotional distance. Discussions referenced sourced reporting from People, Los Angeles Times, and other outlets that had documented the timeline of his personal life. The Internet age amplified what earlier decades had ignored. Conversations questioned his treatment of partners, his reluctance to engage with the families he formed, and the way he allowed the public to see only one version of him, while another version lived a completely separate existence. By the time he reached the height of his directing career, the differences had grown unmistakable. He delivered stories about justice, morality, courage, and consequence while keeping his own contradictions unaddressed. Critics noted this irony. They pointed out how a filmmaker who explored duty and sacrifice often avoided accountability in his personal relationships. These critiques drew from verified interviews and historical reporting, not rumor. Yet, because Eastwood never responded, the debate took on a tone of quiet frustration. People wanted explanations from a man who had built his career on withholding them. As new profiles resurfaced old details, a portrait began to form. It showed a man who spent more than 30 years living parallel lives, balancing public respect with private fractures that remained invisible because so few dared to connect the pieces. His achievements were undeniable. His influence on cinema remained untouched. But the personal world he constructed behind that legacy revealed a pattern that forced viewers to reconsider the man they believed they knew. It was not a single mistake. It was a sustained structure of secrecy. But everything came crashing down when the truth was revealed. The truth Clint Eastwood kept buried for decades did not unravel through confession. It surfaced piece by piece through birth records, court filings, public interviews, and quiet acknowledgments that arrived long after the damage had settled. 4 years, he moved through Hollywood with the confidence of a man who believed his personal world could remain permanently sealed. Yet, the seal eventually cracked. And when it did, the full scope of his hidden life forced people to confront a pattern that had been growing since the early years of his career. One of the first revelations came through confirmed reports about the children he never acknowledged during their childhood. Publications outlined how he fathered a daughter in the late 1950s and never publicly recognized her. That fact only came to light decades later when she reconnected with siblings who had also grown up outside the public eye. More revelations followed. Journalists documented additional children from relationships that overlapped in ways the public never realized. Each confirmation widened the gap between his controlled public persona and the complex private reality he maintained. During this period, online discussions grew louder. Comment sections cited these reports and questioned why a man who built a career on controlled strength avoided accountability for the families he created. Critics pointed to his history with Maggie Johnson, a marriage that lasted on paper while he lived separate romantic lives for long stretches. People referenced interviews from women who described long relationships that ended without warning once they discovered he had been dividing his time between multiple partners. These accounts did not come from rumor. They appeared in published profiles, televised interviews, and legal documents that became public record. One of the most discussed stories involved Roxanne Tunis. Their relationship lasted more than a decade, and during that time they had a daughter together. The relationship existed outside his marriage. Yet, he never publicly acknowledged it until much later. When that truth emerged, online critics questioned how he kept such a significant part of his life hidden from both the industry and the fans who believed they knew him. Sondra Locke's account became another turning point. Her published memoir and legal filings revealed a relationship that lasted more than 13 years. She described a world built on promises, shared work, and the illusion of stability, only to discover he had other long-term relationships occurring. At the same time, when their partnership ended, legal disputes followed. Court records documented financial arrangements, property issues, and professional obstacles she linked to him. These details were widely reported by national outlets. Once the public saw the scope of the conflict, discussions intensified. Online communities debated the ethics of a man who maintained multiple lives in parallel while carefully controlling how much of that world ever reached the public. The pattern continued with Jacelyn Reeves, a flight attendant whose relationship with Eastwood produced 2 children. Their identities remained unknown to the public until they became adults. Records and interviews later confirmed the timeline. Online commentators pointed to this chapter as one of the clearest examples of his double life. They referenced how the children grew up outside the Hollywood sphere, while their father maintained a global reputation built on integrity and independence. As these stories surfaced, the internet rebuilt his personal history in real time. Users on forums examined articles from People, the Los Angeles Times, and Vanity Fair. They noted the recurring structure of long relationships, overlapping commitments, and sudden endings. Public reactions grew sharper. Some people argued that his private life contradicted the principles he portrayed in his films. Others saw a calculated pattern of emotional detachment. The criticism was not about a single mistake. It was about the longevity of the secrecy and the number of people affected by it. Critics also revisited events surrounding his relationship with Frances Fisher. They dated through the early 1990s and had a daughter together. Interviews from that period revealed Fisher's emotional investment and her hope for a long-term future. Their relationship ended abruptly. Soon after, the public learned he had already begun a new chapter with Dina Ruiz, whom he later married. This timeline raised further questions online. Commentators pointed to how each chapter of his personal life seemed to conclude only after another had already begun. As more information came forward, the internet examined how his silence played a role in shaping public perception. People questioned whether that silence had protected his family or protected him from accountability. Discussions on platforms like Reddit and Quora revisited old stories and contrasted them with new reporting. Many criticized his pattern of withholding acknowledgment until years later, often after the individuals involved had already spoken publicly. These critics cited sourced interviews where former partners described emotional distance, abrupt separations, and a lack of closure. By the time these revelations formed a complete picture, viewers could no longer see the man on screen without recalling the world he built outside the frame. Every new report added another layer. Every interview from a former partner added another voice to the chorus. The contrast between his directorial legacy and his personal choices became impossible to ignore. His achievements remained intact, yet the structure of his personal life revealed a depth of secrecy that stunned even longtime fans. The relationship between Clint Eastwood and Sondra Locke began under the familiar guise of partnership and professional alignment. But over the years, it became a battle over control, influence, and power. Locke's memoir and the legal filings she submitted reveal the depth of what she described as manipulation, coercion, and emotional abandonment. The story begins with her trust in him built over shared projects and personal intimacy and slowly unfolds into a narrative of deception that spans more than a decade. Even before the lawsuits, she documented private patterns that the public could not see. Those patterns involved constant secrecy, overlapping lives, and a level of control that defined every interaction. Locke alleged that Eastwood pressured her into multiple abortions, insisting that she terminate pregnancies because he did not want additional children. According to her accounts, these were not casual conversations, but persistent, emotionally charged directives. She also claimed he encouraged her to undergo sterilization. These events are documented in court filings and repeated in biographies, establishing a consistent pattern of influence over intimate, life-altering decisions. The public did not know these details at the time, and the silence that surrounded them became part of the larger structure of his double life. The relationship itself extended over 14 years, during which Locke claimed she endured not only secrecy, but also professional manipulation. She discovered that Eastwood had orchestrated a Warner Brothers development deal that was not intended to advance her career. Legal documents indicate that the project was structured in such a way that it would never succeed, keeping her tied to a studio without prospects while he maintained control over her professional future. Lawyers and journalists described the situation as a deliberate attempt to limit her opportunities, and reporting at the time confirmed that the deal was funded by Eastwood's influence designed to protect his narrative and maintain dominance over the partnership. As the relationship deteriorated, the methods of control escalated. Locke returned to their shared home only to find the locks changed and her personal belongings removed. Multiple sources confirmed this event, describing it as both legal and psychological theater, a demonstration of authority that left her temporarily displaced and publicly humiliated. Online commentary has repeatedly cited this incident as evidence of his capacity for vindictive behavior, describing a man who could manage public charm while exercising private control. Biographer Patrick McGilligan emphasized this capacity in his reporting, noting Eastwood's ability to manipulate perception and protect his image with a cold efficiency that often left those closest to him exposed. Locke's legal pursuit of palimony and fraud brought these private realities into public scrutiny for the first time. Court records illustrate her argument that the Warner Brothers deal was a sham and that his actions had tangible effects on her career. These documents, now widely accessible, confirmed what she had claimed for years.